So as the southeast United States is still in turmoil after Hurricane Helene, and now Florida dealing with Hurricane Milton that came by and took down devastation across that entire state, as they're still dealing with Hurricane Helene and the lackluster of response by the federal government, how FEMA has corruptedly not only just ignored these people, but are going against community activists that are at least trying to engage to these people to try to help these people manage what little they have left. While this is going on, and I just want to show a clip, this picture here too. This just happened after Hurricane Milton in Florida here. This is the Tropicana Field. This is where the Tampa Bay Rays, the baseball team, play, and just how much devastation at that stadium. And that's going across the state of Florida. As that is going on, your joyful presidential candidate, Kamala Harris, decides after all this time of ignoring the media to say, hey, it's about a good time that I go and do the media tours. That's where we got to see Howard Stern's interview with Kamala Harris that turned out to be a huge disaster, especially for Howard Stern's sake. Oh, my God. She went on to do The View, which, of course, The View just loved her and idolized her as the proficient queen that's going to take over this position from the horrible boogeyman of the game show host they once loved. But on top of that, she also did a podcast by the name of Call Her Daddy. That's actually the name here. Did this podcast with Call Her Daddy by the name of Alex Cooper, I think her name is, the host of this. And it looks like this is done by inside a spa. It looks like something out of a day spa, just looking at the set there. So you already know it's kind of not going to be as hard-hitting as other podcasts. You're kind of going to guess that there's some sort of, judging by the looks and the feels and the vibes and the fact that it's called Call Her Daddy, it's not going to be a serious interview. In fact, it is so not serious that they're ignoring all the hard-hitting factual claims that we could be discussing, all the stuff, all the turmoils, all the devastation, and decide jump right into the Democrats' favorite mention when it comes to political campaigns, and that is abortions. Because nothing livens a room than talking about aborting babies. And coming from someone that I believe in pro-choice, I believe it comes down to the woman and their doctor at last resort. I'm not, pro-abortion like it's Christmas, but I think in due circumstances, parents have that responsibility. And they have that measure that in worst case scenario, it comes down to that choice. They don't use that term anymore, pro-choice, for that reason, because they're no longer pro-choice. We saw that during with COVID. We saw that during with any sort of measure outside of abortions. They're definitely not pro-choice. But here is Kamala Harris and Alex Cooper of Call Her Daddy discussing the hard-hitting measures that's sweeping across America, whether or not abortion rights are safe. Listen to this.
At a rally in Pennsylvania, former President Trump recently told women, "You will be protected and I will be your protector." What do you make of that?
So he who, when he was president, hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade. And they did just as he intended. And there are now 20 states with Trump abortion bans, including bans that make no exception for rape or incest, which we just discussed.
So right off the bat, and even if you are the most anti-Trump person, you can confirmly say that Trump did not effectively put a ban out for all these different states. What is very clear and what is mentioned numerous times and what Trump has stated is that his measure put that towards the states. The states had the opportunity then to make that decision for themselves. Individual states can then decide in their jurisdiction whether to have an abortion ban or not. And a lot of the states, majority of the country, does not have that abortion ban. A lot of it doesn't have that ban in place. But what Kamala Harris is doing here is deflecting that to say that Trump took the opportunity to put these bans in place. No, the states did. All Trump did was push that towards the states' jurisdictions. He got it away from the federal government, which, in all fairness, I think it's a smart move, considering the lackluster responsibility of the federal government. Do you really think that the federal government could be responsible for also a woman's reproductive rights, considering the fact that they could have easily codified Roe v. Wade? They could have easily done it when they had the House, when they had the Senate. No Democrats codified Roe v. Wade. Barack Obama didn't do it. Joe Biden didn't do it. None of these people did it. They had every opportunity to do so. And then all of a sudden, because Trump became president and they didn't do anything with the Supreme Court, they didn't do anything with Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and that gave Trump the opportunity to select his own Supreme Court nominees, and they got into the court system. Once Joe Biden became president, Roe v. Wade was overturned because they failed. They failed to protect Roe v. Wade. And now because they failed to protect Roe v. Wade, now they're running on this issue because they have nothing else to give you. They have nothing to run on. This is all they have. That's why if you go to the DNC playlist in Chicago just a few months ago, all they talked about was abortion. Every single night was about women's rights, abortion, abortion, abortion. Sounding like it's a Christmas party and not something to do with a serious medical issue. Which, by the way, they're not going to address healthcare. They're not going to address Medicare for all, which will be effective for everybody, regardless of gender. But no, we got to focus sternly on abortion rights, not pro-choice, because they don't believe that anymore. Not pro-choice, not bodily autonomy, but pro-abortion. Which nobody ever states that they're pro-abortion. Okay? That nobody is pro-abortion. Abortion should be the last result, the last measure you ever have to take. Nobody should be heading to that direction willfully like it's a Christmas present. So right off the bat, she just completely outlastly lie in this podcast interview. But maybe she feels comfortable enough because it looks like a day spa and she's talking to another female, as opposed to actually having a serious conversation with an investigative journalist. Maybe that's why she's doing all these media tours at a time where she can't even do a press conference. She can't even do a press conference for the victims of a hurricane, but she can go onto a podcast interview and talk about Trump and his abortion ban, which it isn't. He gave it to the states.
Which means that you're telling a survivor of a crime, of a violation to their body, they don't have a right to make a decision about what happens to their body next, which is immoral. So this is the same guy that is now saying that. This is the same guy who said that women should be punished for having abortions. This is the same guy who uses the kind of language he does to describe women. So, yeah, there you go.
You know, it's really hard for me to have the sympathy that Kamala Harris is shedding crocodile tears for about this, when just a short while ago, they were trying to punish people, forcing them to take an experimental vaccine, which is very safe and effective according to YouTube standards. But there's people out there that have lost their jobs. There's people that have been outcast. They were determining whether or not to send these people away from decent society. So forgive me if I don't feel the same fake empathy that Kamala Harris is trying to prevail in this podcast interview, that, oh, Trump wants to attack women and their rights. How dare he wants to punish them for not going their measure. As opposed to you, Joe Biden, and the rest of the establishment who forcefully punished people for not taking an experimental drug. Again, this is why that pro-choice stance that they used to agree with is no longer around. They are no longer pro-choice because of that. Because they became the people attacking people's bodily autonomy. They don't believe in that anymore. Big pharmaceuticals and the military-industrial complex and other corrupted organizations now dictate how the government operates, and they are destroying the rights of individuals for their own bodily autonomy. And we saw that during COVID. We saw that during they're now trying to draft people because we're about to go into World War III under Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. We're about to enter into World War III. They're trying to draft people. So excuse me if I don't have the same empathy, the fake, bloomy empathy, crocodile tear empathy that Kamala Harris is acting here. I'm surprised she didn't try to shed a tear at least once. That she cares about female autonomy. That she cares about women's rights. Because right now, she didn't care about anybody's rights.
I do want to focus on abortion for a moment because 2 years ago, Roe v. Wade was overturned and women lost their constitutional right to an abortion. I put out an episode about it. I flew to North Carolina. Yeah. I went to a preferred women's health center. I met with women that were getting screamed at and chanted at. And
sorry, I just had to pause there because the host, Alex Cooper, just said she flew to North Carolina. She's like, oh, we got to continue talking about abortion, and I flew to North Carolina. Again, not even a peep about the hurricane that just happened in North Carolina. Like, I would think that would be a good segue, at least, into talking about, hey, you're currently kind of in charge right now. I don't know if you are. We don't know who's actually running this country, because definitely the demented circus clown, Joe Biden, is not in charge. He's not capable of being in charge of his own body. We don't know who's in charge. You're kind of the face of it. Why aren't you helping the people in need at a difficult time right now that are begging in dire need of essential supplies of survival? Why aren't you doing that right now instead of going on to this stupid podcast and endlessly talking about abortion, which clearly you don't even fight for? Because again, coming down to all this, they had every opportunity to codify Roe v. Wade. Every opportunity to do so. They have failed. Why? Because now they can run endlessly on it and they'll have something to campaign for. That's all they're running on. They're not offering you health care. They're not offering education. They're not ending the wars. They're actually creating more wars and more catastrophes so we can get ourselves into World War III and then draft people for it. So I would have thought that just mentioning North Carolina, maybe you take a second. Speaking of which, how devastating it is in Nashville right now. How people are scrambling around. How at least Donald Trump, as crazed a maniac he is, at least bothered to step foot in Georgia. Tulsi Gabbard was in North Carolina and took some video footage and went around to the town. At least they're doing something. But it's okay because Kamala Harris may or may not give you a $750 check. We don't know if it's going to mail out to you because your mailbox got destroyed with your house and everything inside. Oh, just so devastating.
Called Baby Killers, and it was the most eye-opening experience I've ever had, because I am a privileged white woman that lives in Los Angeles, and I am so aware of that. I understand that a lot of the younger generation sees things online and is like, what is right, what is wrong, what is real, what is not. Can you explain and talk about what is actually happening to abortion access right now in this country?
Yeah.
So it's funny that she brings up, right versus wrong, because another thing I can mention, which I know people might say it's not bodily autonomy because it's not a physical part of this, but also understand that Kamala Harris and the rest of the establishment are very much pro-censorship. And you may scratch your head and go, what does that have to do with reproductive rights? What does that have to do with bodily autonomy? It's speech. It's not a physical part of you. Well, speech and individual thought give us our individuality. If we didn't have our own opinions and able to address our own opinions, then we're not individuals. We are not human beings. We then given our bodies, our minds, and our brains, which is part of bodily autonomy, away to the government to dictate over us. So, again, it just amazes me that all these people, even, like Taylor Swift, her endorsement, all they care about is this so-called claim of victory so they could protect abortion rights, even though the Democrats purposely failed at every opportunity and will never actually codify Roe v. Wade, never actually do anything to protect women's rights, because they will have nothing to campaign on. And it's just amazing that nobody's caught on to this game. Nobody's caught on to this game. Nobody. Not this podcast lady, even though she states, well, I'm a privileged white lady from Los Angeles, so I don't have to know things. Not Taylor Swift, because she's making billions of dollars on record deals and touring around the country. That's why I didn't believe her when she said, "Oh, I'm really deep in the political sphere. I'm really reading up on things." Yeah, I don't really believe that. Maybe checking things on your phone, but I don't think you're really doing the hard-hitting measures that myself or other podcast journalists have been doing extensively on this. Because if you actually did, you would have questions for Kamala Harris, not support. Here's also, I want to show this too. Here's another part of that podcast where, again, it's just all pervasive lies. It's all just theatrics. And people knew what was actually going on, they would be insulted by this podcast. And especially at this point. Listen to this.
I want to pose this question more to you and the Daddy Gang, but one of the biggest conversations in this year's election revolves around a woman's body.
Yep.
I want to take a moment, and can we try to think of any law that gives the government the power to make a decision?
I know what you're going to ask.
About a man's body. Let's
No.
Is there any law?
No.
No. Sounds like the freaking maid from Family Guy. No. I can't think of any time in human history that the government pervasively went after bodily autonomy. Oh, except, a couple years ago with COVID, or except right now with the draft, that they're trying to draft people for World War III. Or the mass censorship campaign that we're trying to, again, just obvious lies to people. And regardless of if you're a woman or not, regardless of gender, regardless of sex, these are the vital things of human beings. And nobody's saying a damn about that. Nobody's saying a damn thing about wrecking people's rights and their bodily autonomy for that. Nobody's mentioning that. Considering the fact that this is also the chief prosecutor in California that arrested the most nonviolent drug users, people that smoked marijuana, and then she laughed about when she smoked marijuana. So let just be known that, forgive me if I don't feel the same sympathy as these people on this podcast caring about faux pas, caring about women's rights, and then go to the assumption that, well, men don't have that problem. Try saying that after being almost exiled from society, from not accepting this horrific mandate, this medical tyranny, and injecting you with an experimental vaccine, which is very safe and effective and slows transmission. I got to put the disclaimer out. Try saying that to people that are now worried that we can end up in nuclear warfare because of her continuation of invasion into Russia, the illegal genocide that they're funding to wipe out the entirety of the Middle East, and how we're pushing the buttons with Iran. We're trying to infiltrate a war between Taiwan and China, while simultaneously we're also sending people from Africa into Latin American countries to start civil wars over there. So, again, forgive me if I don't feel the emotional sympathy, the faux pas sympathy of Kamala Harris caring about women's rights, because she has stricken down everyone else's rights, and including the fact that she would never codify it herself or any member of the Democratic establishment because of this opportunity that she gave herself. Because she's not doing anything for anybody else. But hey, I can talk endlessly about a woman's right to choose, because I have nothing else to offer the American public. And that is for certain, especially at a time where she should not be doing this podcast. Like, the time to be doing a media tour was a while back. The times to do media, appearances was when people were actually questioning why you weren't doing media appearances. But now that we have seen 2 hurricanes pass through the southeast United States, here you are blabbing and making obvious lies that people can see right through your face about women's rights in America. How we're going back into the Handmaid's Tales days. Just so utterly insane and insidious that's actually insulting to America. When literally they could be doing anything to help people in need right now, especially during election year. You would think that they would care, at least fake sympathy for hurricane victims. But they ain't doing that either.